Chris Christensen was a fraud. That sentence stopped the Seoul World Martial Arts Expo dead. Jin-Kyu, legendary Taekwondo master, 5-time world champion, and notorious ego, stood center stage, gripping the mic, eyes scanning the international crowd like a predator. He taught fake punches to actors, he continued, voice laced with mockery. And Hollywood calls him a master? He was just another stuntman with a whistle. In the front row, Jason Statham's expression did not change, but something behind his eyes did. His mentor, Chris Christensen, had passed just a year ago. A quiet man who had trained champions and choreographers alike. A man Jason owed everything to. Jin-Kyu smiled wider, feeding off the tension. He trained Jason, right? Taught him how to pretend to get hit. The audience laughed nervously. Cameras swiveled. Jason sat still. Then came the line that broke the room. If his ghost is watching, Jin-Kyu sneered, tell him to come shut me up. The laughter died instantly. Jason stood. Not fast. Not angry. Just steady. The crowd went silent. Jin-Kyu tilted his head, mock confusion on his face. Oh, did I touch a nerve? Jason's voice cut through the stillness like a blade. Say what you want about me. But Chris Christensen taught more honor in one breath than you've shown in your entire career. Gasps. Jin-Kyu shrugged, waving him off. Then defend him, movie man. Or sit back down with the rest of the audience. Jason stepped forward, eyes locked. Come. Centered. I'll defend him, he said, voice low. Even if he's not here to see it. The mat zone opened. The Expo held its breath. And the real fight, silent, personal, inevitable, was about to begin. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with a brash Taekwondo master, and comment where you're watching from today. The Seoul International Martial Arts Expo was more than just a celebration. It was a spectacle. Inside the massive glass-domed convention center, legends from every fighting discipline had gathered. Banners of global dojos lined the walls. Press badges hung from the necks of camera crews. Teen black belts in crisp uniforms posed for selfies beside booths run by world champions. A special stage stood in the center, lights circling its perimeter, where panel discussions were broadcast live across several countries. The energy? Electric. Jason Statham sat quietly in the front row of the main panel hall. No entourage. No spotlight. Just a black t-shirt, calm posture, and a quiet nod when fans whispered his name. He was invited as a guest of honor, there to pay tribute to the stunt community and his late mentor, Chris Christensen, a man known equally for his grit and humility. Across the stage stood Jin-Kyu, South Korea's undefeated Taekwondo icon. Early 40s. Immaculate dobok. Polished belt. A martial arts purist. He was both loved and hated for his unfiltered opinions. And he hated Hollywood. When the panel topic shifted to real martial arts versus movie combat, Jin-Kyu's lips curled into a smile that everyone recognized. He was ready to take a shot. He leaned toward the mic and said, "It's nice that actors are here, but let's not confuse choreography with combat. I've seen Chris Christensen's footage. He was good at teaching tumbles. But let us not pretend he taught real fighting." A quiet gasp swept through the audience. Jason's fingers tightened slightly on his seat's edge. Jin-Kyu went on. He was an acrobat. Talented, yes. But in the real world, he would have been knocked out before the second round. Jason looked up, expression unreadable. He stayed still. No outburst. Just a quiet breath. But the crowd was already shifting in their seats. The moderator awkwardly tried to steer the topic back. Jin-Kyu leaned back in his chair, satisfied. He had landed his blow. Until Jason slowly stood. The room froze. Jin-Kyu raised an eyebrow. Jason's voice was low, firm. Chris Christensen trained warriors, not performers. He gave more to this world than you ever will. The crowd murmured. Jin-Kyu smirking, "Then defend his honor." Jason didn't blink. "I will. Even if he's not here to see it." Phones raised. Audience locked in. The storm was coming, and they all felt it. The room was still catching its breath when Jin-Kyu leaned forward again, eyes locked on Jason, sensing the tension, and doubling down. He tapped the mic with 2 fingers. "Let us be honest," he said, voice steady, but laced with venom. Chris Christensen was not a fighter. He was a glorified stunt coach. A man who taught actors to pretend. A ripple went through the crowd. Some laughed nervously. Others shook their heads, uncomfortable. Jason's face tightened, just slightly. Jin-Kyu kept going. He was good at camera angles. Good at making guys like you look tough. But in a real fight, he was nothing. He never stepped into a ring with killers. He taught fake fighting. The moderator visibly winced. The translator hesitated, but the meaning was clear in every language. Jason stood completely still, arms relaxed at his sides, but the pressure behind his stillness was unmistakable, like a bow pulled back to its breaking point. Jason finally spoke, voice low but clear. "You've made your point. That's enough." Jin-Kyu smiled wider. No. You wanted to defend him, remember? Go on, show us. Prove his training was worth something. Jason didn't move. "I'm not here to fight." "Then sit down," Jin-Kyu shot back. "Or admit what everyone knows, that you're just another actor wearing someone else's black belt." Jason's eyes stayed on him. One breath. Ugh. Then Jin-Kyu leaned forward, his final dagger. "Tell your ghost to make me stop." A gasp tore through the crowd. Someone near the front row whispered, "No way, he just said that." Phones rose. Shutters clicked. Jason's stare hardened. For a moment, he looked like stone. Then he slowly took a step forward. His boots echoed on the hardwood as the crowd parted, silent. "I warned you," Jason said. Jin-Kyu chuckled. "What now? You going to give me a movie speech?" Jason stepped into the ring zone, an open mat surrounded by LED lighting. No cameras scheduled to record it, but 100 phones were already pointed in. Jason unzipped his hoodie and let it drop behind him, revealing a plain black t-shirt and a pair of scuffed MMA sneakers. He did not stretch, did not posture. He simply stared across at Jin-Kyu and said, "I'll defend him, even if he's not here to see it." Jin-Kyu's expression flickered, just for a second. But it was too late. This was no longer a panel discussion. This was about to become very real. Jin-Kyu cracked his neck once and raised both fists, not in a defensive stance, but a showman's pose. The crowd stirred. Cameras were rolling. He bowed half-heartedly, more mockery than respect, and circled. Jason stood loose, one foot behind the other, chin tucked, calm as still water. Then Jin-Kyu attacked. A snapping front kick came first. Jason blocked it with his forearm. Another spinning roundhouse followed, high and quick. Jason ducked under, pivoting slightly but not retaliating. Jin-Kyu bounced back into view, his movements polished, precise, theatrical. "Too slow," Jin-Kyu called, launching a triple kick combination. Low, middle, high. Jason absorbed the low kick to the leg, parried the middle, but the high glanced his cheek. A red line opened up just below his left eye. He blinked, unfazed, but the blood was visible. Jin-Kyu grinned wide, flourishing his hands like a magician finishing a trick. "That all you've got, stuntman?" Jason said nothing. He breathed through his nose, eyes locked forward. Jin-Kyu clapped twice, inviting applause from the crowd. A few gave it, awkwardly, unsure if this was still part of the Expo or something far more real. The energy had shifted, but Jin-Kyu treated it like theater. He bounced on the balls of his feet, shadowboxed mid-air, playing to the cameras. Jason rolled his neck once. Still no retaliation. Still no words. Jin-Kyu pointed to the cut on Jason's cheek, smirking. "Your old man trained you for this?" he taunted. Jason slowly raised his fists. No flourish, no anger. Just focus. And somewhere in the front row, a martial arts master leaned to another and whispered, "That man's waiting for a mistake." And Jin-Kyu was about to make one. Jason blinked once. Blood still trickled down his cheek, but his stance had changed, subtle, predatory. His feet shifted just slightly, knees bent, elbows tight to his sides. Jin-Kyu circled again, cocky from the cut. "Come on, movie man," he taunted. "Make this fun." Jason made no sound. Then, he struck. A lightning-fast low kick snapped into Jin-Kyu's lead thigh, bone to muscle. The crack echoed like wood on meat. Jin-Kyu's leg buckled a half-inch. The crowd reacted instantly. Gasps, sharp inhales. That was not a flashy kick. That was pain. Jason followed with a tight right hook. Low, compact, and brutal. It slammed into Jin-Kyu's ribs like a piston. The champion stumbled backward, arms dropping slightly. His smile vanished. Jason stepped in again. No pause. Jin-Kyu panicked, lashed out with a high spinning heel kick meant to save face. Jason ducked under it, not backing off, but stepping in. He caught the leg mid-rotation, hooked it behind his forearm, and drove forward. Jin-Kyu went airborne, then flat. Boom. His back slammed into the mat with a thud that silenced the audience. It was not graceful. It was not choreographed. It was real. Jason backed away slowly, giving Jin-Kyu space to stand. The Korean master blinked, winded, shocked. "Jason, Chris taught me that too." The crowd exploded. Phones shook. Someone yelled in Korean, "That was a judo dump." In a Taekwondo ring. Jin-Kyu scrambled upright, flustered. Sweat poured down his temples now, not from exertion, but realization. He was in trouble. Jason's eyes never moved. His chest rose and fell, calm and steady. A fighter not chasing momentum, just waiting for the next mistake. And Jin-Kyu, for the first time, looked unsure. Jin-Kyu's breath rattled in his chest as he bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, desperate to recover the ground he had just lost. He let out a roar, part fury, part panic, and lunged forward. Jason did not move. Jin-Kyu launched a flurry, back fist, high kick, a feinted sidekick into a spinning hook. Jason leaned, slipped, blocked. Come. Then he stepped in, cutting through the chaos like a scalpel. He caught Jin-Kyu mid-spin, one hand intercepting the kick, the other gripping the belt knot at his waist. In one fluid motion, Jason yanked Jin-Kyu forward and twisted his hips, sweeping out the supporting leg with a powerful inside hook. Jin-Kyu crashed to the mat with a guttural thud. But Jason was not finished. Jin-Kyu rolled to all fours, dazed, trying to get up. Jason was already moving. He reached down, gripped the back of Jin-Kyu's dobok collar, and hauled him up just enough, then rotated his body and drove a vicious upward elbow into Jin-Kyu's jaw. Crack. The sound was sickening. Clean contact, bone on bone. Jin-Kyu went limp mid-air and crumpled to the mat like a bag of laundry, head bouncing slightly on the canvas. The audience froze. The silence was deafening. Jason stood over him, breathing heavy but composed. He looked down, not with arrogance, but with disappointment. His voice cut the air. "Chris taught me how to end fights I never wanted to start." He stepped back, scooped up his black hoodie from the mat's edge, and slipped it over his shoulders. No victory pose. No stare down. Just quiet finality. One of the Expo staff rushed toward Jin-Kyu, checking his pulse and calling for a medic. The MC, stunned, lowered his mic and said nothing. For once, even the hype had lost its voice. Jason walked toward the exit, past stunned fans and frozen legends. One child in a dobok stood near the hallway, bowing instinctively. Jason paused. Returned the bow. "Remember this," he said quietly. "Respect is heavier than a black belt." And with that, he disappeared into the hallway, leaving behind silence, awe, and a man who would never forget the taste of humility. The auditorium remained hushed. You could hear the whir of cameras zooming in on Jin-Kyu's broken silence. His body curled on the mat, a trail of blood smudging his jaw, his belt half loosened, ego shattered. The MC stepped forward slowly, gripping the mic like it weighed 100 pounds. He cleared his throat and said, voice almost reverent, "Ladies and gentlemen, that was not planned. But it was very, very real. Polite applause stirred in the back, cautious and unsure. But the front rows? Legends. Coaches. Students. They were already standing, watching Jason disappear into the corridor, processing what just happened. Not just a fight, but a statement. In the back hallway, the energy shifted. Dimmer. Quieter. Fluorescent lights buzzed above rows of lockers. Jason walked with quiet focus, hoodie on, hands slightly bruised, posture relaxed but unshaken. Then a voice behind him, small, nervous. "Sir?" He turned. A teenage martial arts student, maybe 13, in a crisp dobok, stood stiffly, bowing deep. "Thank you for defending what matters." Jason looked at him a moment. No smile, no theatrics. Just truth. "Don't worship men like him," Jason said. "Learn from what just happened. Honor's not in titles, it's in actions." The boy bowed again. Jason nodded once, and walked on. The clip hit the internet within minutes. 4 different angles, one from the judge's table, another from a fan's phone, a slow-motion cut from an influencer livestream, stitched together in under an hour by a viral fight page. The caption, simple and bold, scrolled across in black and white. "Jason Statham doesn't talk tough. He ends it." Within hours, millions watched Jin-Kyu get swept, elbowed, and crumpled to the mat. No music. No edit flair. Just raw footage of humility landing harder than any punch. The comments exploded. "This isn't a movie. This is a man defending honor. Respect to Jason. That wasn't ego. That was justice. You mock the dead, and you get reminded why the living still respect them." It was trending worldwide by nightfall. Hashtag Statham vs. Jin-Kyu, hashtag martial arts reality check, and one caption repeated everywhere. This wasn't about belts. This was about character. But the image that stuck, the one that closed every video, thumbnail, and reaction stream, was not of Jason throwing the punch. It was the frame after. Jin-Kyu sitting on the mat. Jaw crooked. Mouth bloodied. His body slumped sideways like the arrogance had drained out of him. His belt still untied. His eyes fixed not on the crowd, not on the camera, but on the corridor. Jason was already walking away. Hoodie in hand. Back straight. Never looking back. Because some men fight to be seen. And some fight to remind the world who still stands when the crowd stops clapping.